Our contributions in education will be our legacy in this industry.
Whether it's through live education or maybe through social media, we're always trying to make a personal connection with you, the learner.
At SamVia, we believe our smile is our business card and our personality is our logo. And how we make people feel after you experience our education and tools is our trademark.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us, my friends, and be a part of the SamVia community.
Good morning, everybody, or maybe it's afternoon, maybe it's evening, who knows at this point, right? Because we're all across the world. But welcome to actually the final episode of Cabin Fever, because we're going to switch things up in about the next week or two. I realize that many of you are headed back into the salons, and so we want to make sure that we're putting these events in times that you can actually attend to them. So we're going to be shifting things around over the next few weeks. Keep an eye out for that. This particular program, Cabin Fever, is going to now be on Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. And after the next two Tuesdays with Sammy, we are going to move that to Mondays at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. So hopefully that will be more convenient for you guys, especially now that we're getting back into the salons. Hi, Adele. Hi, Maria. Hi, Suzanne. I think the comments are coming in really, really slow this morning, so I apologize for that. So I want to ask you guys a question. Over the last couple months, how many of you have felt like you've been kind of swimming along and not quite sure what to do? If that's you, put "that's me" in the comments. Hi, Anshu. And how many of you are starting to feel like you're just barely able to kind of keep up with whatever's coming your way right now? It just seems like you're in this reactive mode, just kind of like, oh, okay, I'm waiting for this next thing to show up in my news feed. I'm waiting for this next thing to walk through my door. And I'm just kind of reacting to whatever falls in front of me at this point. If that's you, pop it into the comments, say "that's me." Looks like you're in that boat, Susan. Adele, you're with me there. Tasha. Hi, Arturo. Hi, Marisa. Hi, Suburban Self-Sufficient from South Africa. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Antonetta. Welcome. So it sounds like some of you are in that same place. Here's the thing. This is a very natural place for you to be right now. And the reason it's a couple months ago, as COVID started to really hit us hard, it sent our autonomic nervous system into a highly sympathetic state. And what I mean by sympathetic is that really heightened state that we get into where we start to enter into fight, flight, freeze, or appease. So what the body's natural reaction is during that time is to kind of like go into this state of, okay, what's coming next? What's going to happen next? And we get so hyper focused on just trying to stay in a state of reaction to whatever is kind of coming our way that we lose that sense of grounding. We feel like our feet are not quite on the ground. I used to tell my coach Lynn when I was feeling this way that I felt like a Macy's Day Parade float. So what I meant by that is I felt like this float and I was just kind of like hovering across the ground and, you know, something was moving me forward, the people down on the ground carrying the float, they were moving me forward, but I felt like my feet were just barely hovering, just a few inches off the ground, and I couldn't get traction. So today, my goal is to share with you my personal process that I go through to regain that focus. And I can tell you very honestly, I've had to very purposely make time for this, especially these last few weeks, because there's so much happening in our world. It's really, really easy to end up just kind of scrolling and flipping through this and starting to feel really lost on what to do next. How do I take that step forward? And especially for a lot of you, as you're returning into salons, whether you're a stylist or a salon owner, you're probably feeling a sense of overwhelm that it's like, oh my gosh, what do I just do right now? Cool. So that's what we're going to work on today. Hi, Dana. Hi, Mia. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, and Shu, I know that numbers are rising in Texas, and I think that's another part of that feeling of uncertainty is even if you are back in the salon right now, you probably still don't know what's going to happen next week, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now. So what we have to get back to is we have to get into a place that we feel like we have something to get control over, because that's what will take that autonomic nervous system and place it back into a centered place, put it back into coherence, is finding something that you feel like you actually have control over so that you can regain that sense of grounding. So that's the goal. Hi, Lawati from Trinidad. Cool. We actually seem to have quite a few people join us from Trinidad. So welcome. Hi, Lavola. And hi, Saverna. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so this is my personal process. I have to give credit where credit is due. My personal coach, Lynn Christian, she has a company called Soul Salt Inc., and I'll be telling you a little bit more about her in just a bit. But she has been the one that's been really instrumental in teaching me these processes, and I've just kind of adapted it to my own process. So the very first thing that we need to do is we need to get our thoughts organized. So this is a program that I use that's called Simple Mind. Simple Mind. And Simple Mind's a great program because what it does is it gives you the ability to create these beautiful mind maps. And this to me really helps with my organization. So the first thing that I always do in the beginning of the week, I just need to get everything that's up here out in front of me. So I can do this. I have my big whiteboard over here on the wall. Sometimes I like to do it on my big whiteboard, so it's a little more physical. Sometimes I do it just here on the computer. So what I'll do is I'll put the major areas of my life, which right now I've got basically 3. I've got my 2 career points, which are Sam Villa, of course, and I've got The Journeyist, which is my coaching company. And then I have everything that's happening in my personal life. So what I'll do is I'll click here on Sam Villa, and I'll just start to think of like, okay, what are all the things that are happening? So right now, we're going into this weekend. We have our awesome event this weekend featuring brilliant artists called Fabric of Change. And I'll say, okay, well, what do I need to do right now for Fabric of Change? Okay, now I need to load up all of the title screens. I need to contact a few more artists, create the event. Then I'll just keep going through that until I feel like, okay, well, I have everything that I can think of that is important this week to those things. Then I'll think, okay, well, what else do I have? I've got YouTube content. But we'll just leave that. YouTube content. I need to contact our artists. So You get the point. I just brainstorm every different thing that I can possibly think of. While you're doing this brainstorm, this is not the time to prioritize. This is just simply getting everything that's up here in the head just out so you can see it plainly. Then I'll go to the journeyist and I'll say, okay, for the journeyist, I need to meet with Drea because we're going to do a group coaching program that I'll be sure to tell you guys about later. Post journey of Sunday. And I'll go to my personal stuff and I'll think of all the things that I need to do here at home, which might be as simple as run the weed whacker. I always feel like there's got to be a better name for that, but it's the weed whacker. It's what it is. I might have to cut down a tree. Whoops. Hang on. That's the wrong thing. I might want to have my mom over for parking lot beverages. Well, we actually call them booverages. I'll put booverages. There's actually a really funny story to that, and I'll tell you some other time. So as you can see, we just continue to get all these things out. You just keep doing that until you feel like you've gotten everything out of here, just out in front of you. Once you have that, then it's time to prioritize. Because here's the thing. If you don't know what the priorities are, you don't know what to do first. And my coach, Lynn Christian, she has this thing that she does. It's called Today and Not Today. And so she prioritizes into, okay, is this important to do today or not today? And she's got a really cool process that goes through that. So for me personally, she also taught me a prioritization process of urgent, important later, because all this stuff is, of course, important. So next thing I do is I go through and I look at each of these things and I ask myself, is this urgent this week? If it's not urgent this week, then I start to look at, okay, well, is it important this week? And the difference for me between urgent and important is urgent means that if I don't do it this week, something's going to happen. Either it's going to become irrelevant, it's going to be consequential to my life, like maybe it's paying my mortgage. And if I don't pay my mortgage this week, I'm going to get hit with a big late fee or something. So anything that's going to have a specific consequence or become irrelevant if I don't achieve it this week, that goes into the urgent category. If it's something that, okay, well, if I don't do it, yeah, it would kind of suck, but it's not going to necessarily directly affect me. And that goes into the important category. If it can be important maybe next week, then that goes into the third category. So once I have this first step done, then what I do is I come and I place that into an actual map of the week. So within my week, I look at it this way. I look at it as I have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to get most of my stuff done. Because for me, the weekend, I want to have something. I want to look at the weekend as my free time. And that's completely up to you. And for a lot of you as hairdressers, I don't have a hairdresser schedule as much anymore. I have a kind of Monday through Friday schedule. For a lot of you, this might actually be Tuesday through Saturday because you typically have Sunday and Monday off. So you would set up yours just a little bit differently. So big rocks, this one right here. Big rocks is the urgent category. So this is where I would put things like, I have to pay my mortgage. I have to contact artists because that has to happen before Sunday. So the big rocks are all the things that have to happen this week. Those are the urgent ones because you have to put the big rocks into the schedule first. Then the important stuff that if it does happen, great. If it doesn't happen, you could kind of get away with it. That goes here into the little rocks. So that might be stuff like, I don't know, mow the yard. If I don't happen to mow the yard, yes, some of my neighbors might get mad at me because it's going to look messy. But if it doesn't happen, is it really going to create huge consequence in my life? Probably not. Once you get all of your big rocks and all of your little rocks sorted, then you start to look at your week. This part is the part that a lot of people skip. This is super important because this is going to help with that feeling of being lost throughout the week and not knowing what to do. And in my professional coaching, in my personal one-to-one coaching, a lot of times people are looking for space in their week to do something good for themselves. Which, let me actually back up just a little bit because I did forget one thing. Before I start to plan out my week, I also go into this right here, which is I always want to schedule something good for my body, something good for my mind, and something good for my spirit. And you could create your own categories. Of course, these are just for me. But I might say, okay, for my body, yoga 3 times this week. For my mind, it might be finish reading book, whatever book I'm reading. And for my spirit, maybe it's meditation, 20 minutes each day. So those are just some examples, but it's 3 things that you make sure go into the schedule so they're not an accident. And these are big rocks. They have to happen. So they're non-negotiables. They're not just important, they're essential to you, because if you don't continue to take care of yourself, you're not going to have much to give to the rest of the world. So make these big rocks. Now, once we have those, then we start to put it into our schedule. So, Monday, I look at my day on Monday. Okay, cool. Well, I'm working from 9 to 5. So here's where in my schedule on Monday I have some time. Well, okay, Monday, yeah, I could easily take the time to pay the rent, pay mortgage. I could easily load the title screens. So we always put the big rocks in first. Then I'll go to Tuesday. Oh, you know what? Tuesday morning's pretty open. So I'm going to have that be one of my yoga sessions. Then pick maybe 1 or 2 of your big rocks. Then go to Wednesday. Oh, you know what? Oh, I'm sorry, Monday. Because I want to do some meditation each day, I add that in. 20 minutes meditation. On Tuesday, meditation. Because I want to do this every day, I'm going to add that to every single day. Hi, Baiju. Welcome. Hi, Rosie. So you can see the point here so far. And then again, I'd look at, okay, well, where do I have the opportunity to do yoga 2 more times? Oh, Thursday morning? Yeah, that's pretty easy. I don't have much going on Thursday morning. Friday afternoon, I'm going to probably skip out of work a little early. So yeah, I could do my yoga on Friday afternoon. So I start putting those things in. Once those things are in, then we can start to look over here at the little rocks category and start to see, okay, well, could I fit a couple of these little rocks in? You don't necessarily have to put those little rocks into a spot right now if you don't see a spot, because you have your big rocks. So if you're with me so far, just give me a thumbs up, something like that. Just so I know you're out there. Great, Holly. Holly's asking, what is the app I'm using for this? It's called Simple Mind. Here, I'll pop that into the chat here for you guys. Then the thing I like about Simple Mind is they have an app for your phone and an app for the computer that if you link it through your Dropbox, the same things show up on your desktop computer and on your phone. So if I'm traveling or something, it's easy to connect back to these mind maps through the app. So I like that one quite a bit. And it's not super expensive. It's pretty affordable. And then, of course, from here, now we need to start looking at each individual day and how to stay organized through the day. This is based from, if you guys have ever heard of the book Scrum, Scrum is where this particular process came from. Let's see, bear with me for a second. Let me get my other screen up here. There we go. And I use a program called Trello for this. So I do use just a traditional Post-it note process with this kind of thing too. And you'll see exactly as I go through this how you would use just Post-it notes with, I've got a whiteboard here to my left that I'll use as my to-do doing done process. So at the beginning of the week, or sorry, at the beginning of the day, because I do this per day, not per week, because really the more focus that we have on just what's right in front of us, the better. So the whole purpose of Scrum is to play off of the concept that there's a law of the mind that is undeniable, and that law is you can only focus on one thing at a time. Multitasking is a lie. Because what multitasking is having the head brain go from this task, okay, focus, 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 focus. And there's tons and tons of research out there to show you that that is incredibly inefficient. So what happens as our focus bounces from place to place, it takes the mind time to get refocused and involved in that new focus. So what we want to try and do is we want to try and get the mind purely focused on one thing at a time. So that's what the purpose of this process is. So each day, I'll look at my task list. And here, we'll just add the card. And each card is one single task. So something that you have as a big rock might actually have to be broken down into smaller pieces so that you can focus on one piece at a time. So let me think of something that we can break into pieces. Let's talk about, since we're talking about Fabric of Change this weekend, let's talk about one of the things I'm in charge of for that, and that's to make sure that everything's loaded into the program. So let's say load all content into a StreamYard or FOC. Okay, that task is too big because there are steps that have to happen to get to that point, because I might not actually even have the content yet. So that might break down into, actually what I need to do is I need to connect with Leanna to create her third graphics. Then you need to download all graphics. Then you need to upload all graphics. So that way it's separated into very, very bite-sized chunks. The more you can bite-sized chunks down, the more achievable they are. Because what I want is something that I can now go, okay, well, connecting with Leanna is one process. Or, sorry, these are all tasks. So today, I'm going to move all 3 of those into my to-do list for today, because I know that I can achieve all 3 of those today. When I'm ready to do something, I grab that and I move it into doing. Here's the rule. Only one thing can be in that doing column at one time. Because again, remember, the law of the mind is you can only focus on one thing at a time. One of the things we try to do is we try to put 3, 4 things into that one space, and we become incredibly inefficient. And again, this is an opinion. This is fact. This is scientifically proven over and over and over. You can only focus on one thing at a time. We've been taught to multitask, but it's the most inefficient way to do anything. So here's what happens. Once I place that into my doing column, and again, if I'm using just Post-it notes on my whiteboard, it's the same thing. I'm taking that Post-it note and I'm putting it into that center column of doing. At that point, I can't return Skype messages. I can't return text messages. I can't check my email. I can't do anything else until I've specifically connected with Leanna, talked to her about creating the lower third graphics, and that task is complete. Once that task is complete, then I have that great satisfaction and that great motivator of taking it and moving it to the done pile. So same thing again with the Post-it note. Once I'm finished with it, it goes into the done pile. This may seem tedious, like it adds steps, but I promise you, because I've experienced the 2, and I've experienced the 2 different ways, even within the last few weeks, because as much as, yes, this is my process, if I start getting flustered and I start getting into that fight, flight, freeze, or appease phase, I drop this because that kind of heightened sympathetic autonomic nervous state, it just puts us into that state of, okay, react to this. Oh my gosh, this is urgent now. This is urgent now. And it's just really ineffective. So after I complete something, it goes into the done pile. Then when I'm ready to start the next one, then I can go, okay, time to upload all the graphics. Once again, this is the only thing I'm allowed to do. Joanne's saying, yep, that's me, just swimming along. So when something is in that doing pile, again, I can't pick up my phone. I'm not allowed to return Skype messages. I'm not allowed to jump back into my email. I'm not allowed to open Instagram, Facebook, anything like that. Until uploading all the graphics is finished, that's my focus. That's my singular focus. Once it's done, once again, we take that, oops, I'm on the wrong screen, and move it to the done column. Here's what I can promise you will happen if you try this. You will be more effective. You will get more done, and you will be more focused on the task. Again, I can tell you that because I experience it so often. One week I'm great at this, the next week I'm crap. So that's the thing, is when you start to feel out of control, our natural process is to just kind of continue to spin and try to fight for control. But at that point, you have to slow yourself down. You have to say, okay, let's get focused. Let's get my mind map out, which sometimes it's hard because what it feels like is things are happening so fast. We're being so reactive in that moment that taking the time to slow back down and get into control, it almost can start to feel like it's a waste of time somehow. So it's important to recognize that you will actually become significantly more efficient you will be more grounded, and you will get more accomplished if you go through these steps. So taking the time to go through the steps isn't just important, it's essential. And we have to place just as much importance on the planning and organization process as the doing of the process. Because that's what we get really sucked into, is get it done, get it done, get it done. Lisa's saying this is really great, Andrew. I'm glad you're digging it. Chanuka Hair Design said she just downloaded the Simple Mind Map. Awesome. So if you have questions on that process, place them into the chat here. And I'm just going to go back and I'm going to review it just real quick for you, because I know some of you have just jumped in. So let me switch back to my other screen here. One minute. Okay, so for those of you that might not have been here with us from the very beginning, again, we're talking about getting us super organized. So beginning of the week, if I'm feeling, well, not even if I'm just feeling frazzled, it's just the beginning of the week process. First thing is just to brain dump everything that's up here in the head brain, swimming around and just racing around, and just get it out in front of you. Because once you see it physically in front of you, it's much, much easier to get organized. Hi, Margaret. Thanks for joining us. So get everything that you can think of out in front of you. Make sure that you just get everything out of it, swimming around up here, and get it in front of you. I think, honestly, you'll be quite surprised at how much better you feel just after that first step. It's very, very soothing to that nervous system. Then you have to prioritize what is urgent now, what has to happen this week, or it becomes irrelevant, or that there's going to be some kind of consequence if you don't get it done this week. Everything else gets put into that important now or important later category and placed into the little rocks. So once we see everything we have to do, then we come in and place that into our big rocks and little rocks categories. So this actually comes from Franklin Covey. And if you want to see something kind of funny, look up a video. It's a pretty old video at this point. It's Franklin Covey, and it's a seminar. And he's sharing the big rock and little rock principle with this woman. And it's actually quite funny because he's got this huge glass jar and then 2 glass jars of big rocks and then a glass jar of little tiny stones. And he says, okay, well, let's see how we can fill this jar with both. So at first he has her take all the tiny little stones and dump it into this big glass jar. And it fills it up about 3/4 of the way. And he's like, do you think you can get those big rocks into there? And she's like, yeah, I think so. So she's taking these big rocks and trying to stuff it into this glass jar filled with tiny little stones. And of course, she can't do it. They just kind of keep piling up on top of the little stones. So they reset. They get the big rocks first, and they get the empty glass jar again. And he's like, what if you put these big rocks in first? So you take these big rocks, and she starts putting them into the big glass jar. And then he says, well, now, do you think all those little rocks might fit in? She's like, I don't think it's going to work because it didn't work before. And so she takes this huge glass jar of all these small stones and she starts to pour them in, and it starts to filter in between the big rocks and fill in all those spaces. And sure enough, it fills up and she's able to get both into the jar. So it's just a great visual representation of how we can go through the week. If we put the big things in place first, those things, just non-negotiable. They have to happen this week. Before we do anything else, we prioritize those things. All the little stuff seems to magically actually fit much better. Here's the tricky thing. Very often, the little stuff is kind of the fun stuff, and the big stuff is the hard stuff, or the big stuff is the stuff that we just don't feel like doing. So we tend to go to the little stuff first because it's easy or it's fun. And so we fill our day with easy, fun little projects. Then we get to the end of the day and we're like, oh man, I didn't take care of that big scary thing. So the idea is put the big thing in first, get that accomplished, and there's always space then for all these smaller things. And again, make sure that you are part of those big rocks. Because if you don't take care of yourself, if you do not make exercise, food, health, sleep, if you don't make those things a big rock in the day, if you don't put those in first, they're probably not going to fit later. So you have to prioritize those things. Once you have your priorities, go day to day. Literally list out what you think you can accomplish each day of that week. One little tip I'd give you, if you want, is to make sure you have a weekend space that doesn't have a lot of stuff put into it. Now, this might be kind of challenging because if you're working a lot, there might be projects that have to get done on the weekend, and that's totally fine. But I do think it's important that empty space is also a big rock in your life, because we tend to just fill every little nook and cranny of every single day, and then that's where we get burned out. So make sure you give yourself a little space too. Actually, you're asking which episode name. I think if you put into the search Franklin Covey, Big Rocks, Little Rocks, Franklin Covey, Big Rocks, Little Rocks. Actually, I'll just put that into the chat for you. I think you'll find the video pretty easy. Hi, Vanessa. You're welcome. Hi, Gitty. You're welcome, too. Rocio Flores from Riverside. How you doing? You're welcome, Margaret. Hi, Elizabeth. Glad you're enjoying it so far. So once you have your week all kind of planned out, that's when we now can switch to our daily task process. And again, this is really all based off of the fact that we really can only focus on one thing at a time. And if you'd like to look at a book that's really fantastic about organizational process, and that's what this to-do, doing, done has come from, it's called Scrum. And I'll pop that into the chat for you guys too. But Scrum was written by some very, very intelligent people on how to be significantly more effective. And what I'm sharing with you here is really this simple concept of it. So take each task, break it into bite-sized chunks, put them into the to-do list, and all you have to do is, once you're ready to get started on that little to-do, drag that or move your sticky note into the doing pile. Remember, that doing pile, I can't stress this enough, that's the only thing you get to do in that time. So if your phone rings, well, I guess it depends on who's calling you, because if Sam calls, I gotta pick it up. But try as best as you can. No text messages, no Facebook, no Instagram, no email, no Skype messages. Just block everything out as much as you possibly can. Get hyper-focused just on that one thing. I think you'll be incredibly surprised at how quickly and how efficiently you will get that task done. Then you say, okay, that's done. Move it into the done category. If I do this, I am so much more effective. when I don't do this, I get to the end of the week, I look back and I think, what the hell did I do with all my time? If you felt like that occasionally, especially recently, put I feel that into the chat. All right, so that's what I got for you this week. Hopefully those couple little steps will be helpful for you. Now, in the description on both the Facebook and YouTube, actually it's not in Facebook yet because there was a little glitch that I have to fix. But as soon as I'm done here in the description on the Facebook video, you can come back and watch this too if you missed something. In the description, there's going to be a link to my coach, Lynn Christian, her program called, oh my gosh, what is it called? I just barely posted it. Get focused. Be focused. Yes, be focused. Her Be Focused program. Whew, it's been a long week, guys. I've had a lot of those tasks. So in the description, I'll have a link to Lynn and her company Soul Salt, her Be Focused program. So it's an online program. It actually will dive much, much deeper into these processes that I've shared with you. And again, these processes that I've shared with you aren't specifically the things that she's taught me. It's my modifications that I've done to it over the years, practicing it. But she's going to dive much, much deeper, much more detail into how to do all this stuff. And if you use the code Journeyist, which I'll also type that into the chat, that will also be in the description. Journeyist is my coaching company, and if you put that in as a coupon code for her program, you get 15% off her program. So again, that'll be in the description on the Facebook and YouTube channel. Elizabeth, you're asking if there's any other books I'd recommend. Scrum's really good. I would highly recommend looking at Lynn's program, Be Focused, because I think that especially for these kind of planning and organizational processes, you kind of want something that has a interactive process to it. I think that'll be more effective for you. Let me think if there's, let me look at my books here. Yeah, I think as far as organizational process, Scrum's probably going to be my biggest recommendation for you on this one. But yeah, check out the program too. Might be super beneficial for you. I know it's helped me a ton. But here's what's most important about this, is remember that this feeling of being lost, kind of not knowing what is the next step to take, this is a natural part of what is happening in our planet at the moment, because everything is still really confusing. Just have to be honest with that. When we're in that space of confusion, when our emotions are high, it's really hard to know what step to take, because the natural reaction of our body is to go into reaction mode. Because if the saber-toothed tiger is chasing you, that's where you need to be. Is you need to be present and ready to react to the moment. But what that does is it pulls us out of the ability to just get focused on the daily things that we know have to happen. So this process that you can go through, it not only makes you more effective, but it actually helps to calm that autonomic nervous system that pushes you into the fight, flight, freeze, or appease. I promise you, when you have that ability to look back at the day and say, wow, this has been really an effective day. I was able to check off this entire list of tasks. At that point, then the nervous system gets this nice dose of, oh, okay, I can chill out. We can start to go back towards that parasympathetic. So it's not just about being effective, it's also about how you feel. And so these processes, again, it's not just about being stronger, faster, better, getting more accomplished. It's actually about how you feel. So let's see. Margaret, you're asking, there's quite a few authors for Scrum. Which author would you recommend? That is a great question, because I don't have my book over here, so I don't know which author. I would probably just pick the one that seems to be the most frequent, the most popular, like kind of the top hit, because that's probably the original. But if you don't find it, if you have more questions, you guys, you are always welcome to reach out to me personally. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook and just shoot me a private message. That's the best way to converse with me. I'll be kind of honest with you. I've sort of taken a hiatus in the last couple of weeks from social media because I just needed a break. I'm so focused on Sam Villa stuff and what we're doing right now within our world that I kind of had to personally take a little bit of a break from my own social media world just to keep my sanity. But I do keep a close eye on my private messages. So if you need anything at all, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help. Before I close up, just one more reminder. We do have an incredible event happening this weekend featuring some brilliant artists from all across the nation. It's going to be all day Sunday, June 28th. Our good friend Tippy Shorter is going to be co-hosting with Sam, and it's going to be a day of just celebration, of education. My friend Doreen Younglove is going to do a musical performance. She is so cool, so passionate, so spiritual. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be fantastic. And also, just as a reminder, if you didn't hear in the beginning, this is my last episode of Cabin Fever, but do not worry. Right after the July 4th weekend, we're going to start a new program called Wellness Wednesdays. It'll be the exact same program, just at a different time. So Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll continue to have these kinds of conversations more based in health and wellness. And I think we'll start to incorporate a little bit of business stuff in there too, because that's been a request of some people. We're also going to eventually move the Tuesday with Sammy program. The next 2 Tuesdays coming up, this coming Tuesday, he has Kia Neal. She has a company called Color. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm forgetting. Anyway, she's also one of our guests this weekend. But Kia Neal will be live with Sam on Tuesday. The following Tuesday, he has Nicholas French on. Oh, amazing. So those 2 Tuesdays, and then the following week, we'll switch on to, he'll be doing his classes on Mondays. We're calling it Mannequin Mondays. So a little bit of change just to make things easier, put them into time slots that are a little bit easier now that quite a few of you are back to the salons. So thank you guys so much. Thank you, Saverna. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Alma. Thank you, Kenneth. Thank you, Elizabeth, Margaret, everyone else for joining us and commenting and playing along. Again, if you need anything, please reach out. I'm Andrew Carruthers, Education Director for Sam Villa. We'll see you later.